Yes, my favorite type of workday, when I can just order a bunch of food and binge watch a TV show all day. Though it's one of my wife's least favorite type of work days when she says, oh, it's not gonna be some Marvel thing, is it? I think she also said, isn't this the one where they go through a bunch of old shows or something? See? No need for me to provide any other kind of setup. So I haven't been watching this weekly. I am watching it all in one day. But it is one of those shows where because I'm on Twitter, I do feel like I already have seen it. It's like The Walking Dead or Game of Thrones, where I don't watch them, but if you're on Twitter, you kinda do. Also, stay tuned to the end of the video to find out what won the full series binge watch poll. Until then, let's watch 9 episodes of WandaVision. Never mind Disney Plus, this is like if a Marvel show was on IMDb TV. The first episode is like Bewitched if it were on the set of the Dick Van Dyke Show. There were subtle gags I really liked, like Vision walking through the footstool instead of tripping over it. You can tell the people behind this grew up with sitcoms because it feels like a real love letter instead of looking down on it or attacking it. The jokes, the episode's plot, and the commercials all feel very appropriate for that time. Even when they make rings appear on their fingers, you can see the obvious cut put in. As for how else it's made, it does look like it was made today and not 50 years ago. From the visual quality to the camera being full screen, yeah, but kinda far back still. Weirdly, I sorta like that though, because it does make it feel kinda unsettling. Like it's simultaneously a sitcom spoof and a modern Twilight Zone. Oh, I bet it's all leading somewhere. It's our second Bewitched style episode where Wanda and Vision are still hiding the fact that they got powers. In a classic sitcom sense too, like he says, I don't eat food, I don't eat food between meals. But here's what should have happened. Since this is also like Bewitched, they should have had another Dick Sargent-like actor replace Vision in this episode, and no one references it. Again, I do like when it gets weird, like when the radio messes up, and it's really eerie, like when David Lynch does the 50s. What I could do without is when this time around there are some jokes that wouldn't happen in a 50s show, like a masturbation joke. But the gags like him acting drunk at a magic show and doing real magic, which she has to cover up by trying to make it look fake. That was cleverly done and appropriately shenanigansy. Now do Heaven for Betsy. This is nothing like Heaven for Betsy. She's pregnant, so now we're in the late 60s, early 70s, bro. This is like a That Girl Brady Bunch style hybrid. There aren't 6 kids running around or anything like that, since I think it'd be a little hard to satirize just the Brady Bunch better than the Brady Bunch movies did. What would have been a nice extra touch if Disney Plus aired a spin-off on the same day. Like the Davises have their own show or something, and it's only one episode because it gets canceled. Again, there is weirdness going on, like the characters slowly figuring out that this is more the Truman Show and less the Partridge Family. Sorry, I'm pretending like I have no idea where this is going. But I do like that there's some surprises here to the structure. I wasn't sure if the show would just be sitcom spoof, sitcom spoof, sitcom spoof, and then they explain everything at the end. This flashes back to Margaret Rambeau coming back from being Thanos snapped and investigating a missing town surrounded by a force field, and it does explain all of the drones and weird radio messages in the previous episodes. Maybe you could argue that all of this is less like a sitcom satire and more like the X-Files or Fringe. I'm curious where this goes. They brought back Kat Dennings Darcy, the Jar Jar Binks of the MCU. My least favorite MCU character, ooh, yay! But it's been years since The Dark World, so how do I feel about this character being the one who has to figure out the Mystery Avengers sitcom? Honestly, so far, she's fine. I never thought this character was unfixable. The writing on her is a lot better here. She's quirky and snarky, yeah, but you're not pounded in the face with it. She doesn't ruin whole scenes or tones. It's pulled back quite a bit. Some parts here are even kind of tense, like Wanda figuring out Margaret knows who she is and then blasting her out of the town. Now they just need to turn into cannibals like in Parents. It's the 80s now. Since it's a modern take on a sitcom from when I was a kid, they should pull a Fuller House and have Wanda say, "Why does everyone keep asking me about Michelle?" Looks at camera. I like that the series doesn't parody a specific show, more so just a type of show from a given era. This here's like a Growing Pains style show, and with an opening credits that's very similar to Family Ties. Plus her kids instantly go from infants to toddlers, which could be a nod to Chrissy Seaver and Andy Keaton. It goes back and forth from the Kat Dennings stuff to the sitcom, so that keeps the story moving. Though a lot of explanations are playing out like I figured they would going into it, even though I do like the storytelling structure. And some parts, like the supporting sitcom actors briefly coming out of character, are kind of horrific, like a Jordan Peele horror sitcom. Although when the supposed real people outside of sitcom land start debating who could have defeated Thanos, that just feels like the dialogue's been replaced by a comments section. I can't get too upset though, there is finally a recast joke, and a clever one too. Her brother Pietro is back, and it's not Aaron Taylor Johnson, it's Evan Peters. Bravo! Damn it, I didn't watch Malcolm in the Middle, so I don't know what to say about this episode. Though since we're getting into 90s, early 2000s territory here, it is starting to match up visually with how those shows look. The 50s, 80s stuff, you couldn't really fool anyone into thinking that that was shot back then. This though, nah, you could probably convince someone that this is some lost Malcolm in the Middle knockoff, but only if they fall asleep during the out-of-sitcom sword scenes. Honestly, it kind of does feel like if the short-lived No Ordinary Family series took place in the MCU, but we all know this is all gonna lead to an ending where it turns out I'm being paid by some crazy millionaire to get on camera and just describe shows to him. Until then though, the WandaVision sitcom bubble is expanding like the force field from Annihilation, only with clowns instead of scary hell bears. Seriously, it's rewriting people's cells. Now we're in mockumentaries, which is around when I stopped watching every sitcom known to man. But I mean, who just talks to the camera with hilarious anecdotes and tangents? WandaVision is doing a really good job of mimicking these formats, but I don't know if it's really saying anything about them specifically, other than in a general sense, with the series being about grief and sitcoms being a very common coping mechanism, trust me. But again, as for recreating a style, it's good at that. When Kathryn Hahn says to the camera she was one split end away from cutting her own bangs, that gave me the biggest laugh so far in the show. By the way, she plays Agatha, who it turns out is the secret villain. She even has her own song called Agatha All Along. I bet that's gonna trend. It seems like most streaming shows I watch have an episode like this, where it's mostly backstory. Now we know Agatha was a witch who wasn't so much burnt at the stake, but beamed at the stake, or at least they tried. And we see why Wanda got into sitcoms, and what led to her creating Pleasantville. All of it is very important information that maybe didn't have to be condensed into this one episode. It could have been spread out a little more, maybe. It's kind of like that Lady in the Lake episode of Haunting of Bly Manor. It's padded out quite a bit. But don't mind me, this episode has that line that I saw quoted all over the place. How does it go? What is grief if not love preserving? Definitely the best line of dialogue I've heard since "You're rich in character and you have great boobs" from Wisdom. Damn, and I thought it was gonna turn out it was in Stars Hollow this whole time. I recognize that gazebo anywhere. This is definitely a series finale. All kinds of shit gets blown up. Like if Newhart ended with his head exploding instead of a golf ball waking him up. There's stuff that really works, like the townspeople finally being able to plead with her, like a small town 70s horror film. A lot of it really does work as like a body snatchers type horror movie crossed with the rerun show. They really should have focused more on that. I really want to spend time with these poor people who have been held hostage for like 9 episodes. Instead, the finale is very climaxy. Kathryn Hahn is always great, but I don't know if this show really needed a big bad. It could have served the same purpose without it. Having a supervillain just means it's going to be very effects heavy and a lot of villainy dialogue. But maybe going back in time to the zombie witch burning is like a satire of a shark jumping moment? I don't think it is. But in this finale, you do get to see some characters have a proper goodbye with each other, and that's nice. Speaking of goodbye, the show is a good way to spend the day. Not great, but good. I appreciate its love of sitcoms. As a sitcom geek myself, it was nice seeing a story about grief and how sitcoms can be used as escapism. I can see why it's a 9-part series because it is parodying television series, but really, you could have told this story in a 2-hour movie. I've seen it done before, whether it's movies like Stay Tuned or, again, Pleasantville, both of which I thought were better at mimicking the old sitcoms. Or hell, this even reminded me a little of George Miller's It's a Good Life segment from the Twilight Zone movie. WandaVision is entertaining, but it is predictable, and since it's so stretched out, I kept feeling like I was about 2 steps ahead of the investigating characters. The setup is cool and weird, and it's a big thank you to sitcoms for being so comforting in our lives. But all of that really just leads to your standard Marvel climax, where 2 characters are just flying around and shooting lasers and shit at each other. There is good heart to it as a whole. I wouldn't rewatch it, if given the choice. Yeah, I'd rather just rewatch an old sitcom, but this was fine to watch once. Speaking of classic sitcoms, our next full series binge watch will be for Home Improvement, which won the Patreon poll. I honestly thought Avatar would win. I really just put Home Improvement there as a filler choice, but hey, looks like it won. That's fine with me. I watched it all first run, so I'm looking forward to a rewatch. So look for that video later this year, and until then, follow us on Twitter at The Cinema Snob, and subscribe to our channel today at youtube.com/StonedGremlin Productions. See you next time.